It's a beautiful Monday morning. How are you doing today, sir?
I have had an absolutely terrible board meeting on Friday night. People were so distraught about the fees for that particular committee, how things have been going through the roof the past 2 years. And you know what? Unfortunately, a lot of it had to do with our favorite topic, insurance. I mean, we're trying to stay ahead of budget. We're already talking budget and we're only in June, but man, I feel for these folks.
Absolutely. David, there's some things that we can do, some moves we can make, and we really want to explore it. So today, I have for you, we have a guest who's actually brought to us from our old friend Doug Newman, right? So today, on this bright Monday morning, we have Mr. Chaz Ryan from Pilicy and Ryan. So Chaz, welcome to the show. Can you please tell us and our viewers a little bit about yourself and what it is you do relating to community associations from the legal standpoint?
All right, well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Again, Chaz Ryan with Pilicy and Ryan, located in Connecticut. I am a condo lawyer. This is what I do. I know people are jealous of that. It's what I always wanted to be growing up as a kid, and here I am living the dream. So we represent community associations all over Connecticut. Myself, I'm the current president of CAI here in Connecticut, and I also am on our legislative committee. So we're basically all things condo. I'm involved in it all day, every day.
So as I was bringing up in the introductory comment, we see fees in community associations going way up. And in part, it's due to all the services going up, but insurance is a big issue for many communities. Do you see an increase in delinquencies in communities across the state due to increased fees, or what's the trend out there?
We are absolutely seeing an increase. We track all these numbers. We have programs. They're up. And I talk to my colleagues, they're up there too. And I've been through this cycle before. I mean, it's not 100% related to insurance, but it's up, and the courts are noticing it's up, and it's getting harder and harder to work through these issues with communities that are having owners that just aren't paying in larger numbers.
So when you have the situation where fees maybe, and I see a lot of communities that's all we do is go to board meetings. So they talk about, we haven't raised fees in X amount of years. We try to keep everything down for our unit owners. And then all of a sudden they have to. They absolutely just have to. There's legislation that's coming on board state by state that says they're going to have to fund the reserves to a certain degree. What would be step one? Do you have advice for boards and management companies? So when they're getting a lot of pushback from the unit owners about the fee increases, what's step one?
Step one is we always blame prior boards. It's never our fault. We have to start there. They didn't fund properly. They didn't do this and that. But we try to explain to people that if you're a consumer, your association is a consumer. And we all know what it's like to get pressed at the gas station, at the grocery store, inflation. Go down the list. The association is no different, and we don't have a product that we make. And so we have to raise capital through our common charges. It's the only way to do it. And we try to have these conversations with owners and explain that maybe we didn't raise the rates for the last 3-4 years, and now it's time to have a bigger increase than we should have, but we don't have any other options. And we need to push forward. And if you tie it to the economy, people start to understand it. It doesn't feel better, but they understand it, and we try to work forward from there. Compassion's the key, though. Everyone's in it together. And I always tell them, your board members, at least the vast majority of mine, are volunteers, not getting paid at all. They're paying the same that you're paying, and so they're in it with you.
But now a lot of communities out there are dealing with delinquents that are maybe like $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. What's the typical process? Now, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You're in Connecticut. Some people are elsewhere. What's the typical process?
So in Connecticut, we have a lien for unpaid common charges, and we also have, I should say unpaid assessments, but we also have a priority lien. So we're unique in that 9 months worth of common charges, whatever that amounts to, again, it doesn't have to be common charges, but an amount equal to 9 months of common charges, our priority lien. So we get paid ahead of the banks, first and second mortgages. So they get turned over to us, and that lien also includes legal fees and costs. They get turned over, they have to owe at least 2 months. And then at that point, we're a little unique. We will send a courtesy letter. I mean, it is a demand, but we'll give them a chance. Here's a 40-day notice. Pay us or enter into a 6-month payment plan, and we're only going to charge one flat fee, and off we go. It gives people a chance to dig out for these debts, because a lot of times the debt's only $1,200 for the unit owner. Right? If I tack on $1,500 of fees and costs, it's insurmountable for a lot of people. So we'll have this first initial fee, but if they don't pay or have a payment plan within 40 days, we're statutorily obligated to write to their banks, their first and second mortgagee, give them 60 days to pay, and if not, we unfortunately have to start a foreclosure. One good news is I'd say about 65% of our files never make it to foreclosure. The owner pays or the bank pays.
Now, for our managers and boards out there, what advice do you have for them as to begin that process?
So step one, have a collection policy. In Connecticut, we follow CAI, Common Interest Ownership Act. Have a collection policy. It outlines the collection process, and you give it to all the owners. You put it in recess. sale certificates, but you let them know what's going to happen. And in that, it outlines if you're 2 months behind, you get sent over to the attorney. A lot of times, I mean, people are sympathetic. It's tough out there. So they're seeing the uptick and they want to work with people. And what we'll say is send them over and then let us work with them. Tell us, instruct us to give a 15-month payment plan, especially during COVID. We did a ton of this. But tell them, let us do it because there are certain, let's say, tick marks that need to be followed, right? Like you have to hit a certain benchmark. And so we have to get the clock running for 40-day notice, then 60-day notice. If they're not going to pay, let that clock be running. Let me at least send one notice and get the 40-day notice out of the way so that if they fail, at least we're not 40 days behind starting over. And we can be very, very generous with them if the board's telling us to. I mean, some boards say be aggressive, and some will say, no, we want to work with this person a little bit more. It comes up to everyone's financial ability.
I like that approach, and I think that's really a takeaway for managers across the board is really work with your lawyer early in the process. That's my number one takeaway, and really be willing to work with the residents because at times it's just like we're all humans and interacting with each other.
The other thing I would add is that we get creative sometimes. So for example, if someone gets turned over to us and it's December, I might say to them, okay, stay current. Again, they have to reach out to me, but stay current for the next 3 months. And when you get your tax return, pay us off and I'll avoid a foreclosure, right? So there are ways to get creative with people. As long as they're not going backwards and it's hurting my client, I can work with them a little bit. And now you can see the humanity come into it and we're trying to help people out.
I like it. CAI Ryan, the attorney for the people.
I'm making this a lot nicer. Trust me. There is a level of we need to get this done. And when people aren't communicating with us, when people are missing payments, it's the person who misses a payment gets a letter from us versus the person who calls me in advance and says, I'm going to miss this payment. I'm going to be late. Those are two very different people in collections.
Do you have any advice as far as budgetary position, meaning when they're getting ready to have an increase, do you have any advice for them to where they can kind of pad that or slow it down to the point where it's more palatable for the unit owners?
Communication key. It's not fair. If you know that you're starting your budget process and you know that there's going to be an increase, why not send a notice out to the community and let them know, hey, by the way, we're working on the budget. The numbers look like they need to increase. Be prepared for a significant increase, no less than 10% increase, whatever the number is. The same is true for special assessments. You know a special assessment's going to be coming. Nothing says you have to drop it on them 10 days before the meeting when the notice has to go out.
I just have a little quick question regarding your background. So you mentioned in your introduction that you always want to be an association lawyer. For real, how did you get into this business?
You want the true story, huh? I married the boss's daughter.
There you go.
I met a beautiful young woman in law school. She wanted to live in Boston. I was from Boston. So I moved to Connecticut instead. And her father gave me a job. I was dating her at the time. And I said, what are condos? What am I doing? And I'll be honest, it's worked out phenomenally. I really enjoy what I do. It is such a diverse area of law. It's crazy. I always tell people they're corporations where the shareholders live there. I mean, Jack Welch never left his house, right, for GE, went to his mailbox and got accosted by all the shareholders of GE about everything he's doing wrong. And here, that's what happens to every board president around the country.
Interesting. I love the outlook you have on it.
So I really appreciate the insight there, Chaz. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Before we let you go, anybody that you would give a little quick shout out for, 10 seconds or less, somebody that's been influential for you, your career, beside your boss?
Honestly, it's my mother. She was a single mother when I was growing up. My father passed when I was 4. She was a flight attendant with Delta. Watching her work hard to give me every chance I had and selling her house so that I go to college and be where I am. She's the influence.
Wow, no kidding. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's really, really beautiful. And again, thank you for being on the show today and sharing with us your insights on how to deal with what's going on out there, because it is tough. It really, really is tough. And it was great to have you today.
And we'll see you all next week for the next episode of Community Association Car Chat with David and Steve.